Next on Currents News, school kids in the Diocese of Brooklyn join Catholics worldwide in honoring all the saints on this holy day of obligation. The misery from the California wildfires is being made worse tonight. Thieves pretending to be firefighters are looting evacuated homes and businesses. The controversy over Joe Biden and Holy Communion is getting the attention of Cardinal Timothy Dolan. What he would have done if Biden came up the aisle. Plus, Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio is here. He says the power of forgiveness can change the world. There's two powerful examples. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Tamara Lane. Across the world today, Catholics are remembering the Church's holiest people. It's All Saints Day, and in the Brooklyn Diocese, Catholic kids are putting a special mark on the celebrations. Currents News' Emily Drewby has the story from Woodside.
Voices rang out Friday morning. St. Thomas the Apostle Church packed with parishioners and saints. Students from the parish's Catholic Academy celebrating All Saints Day, a Catholic holy day held on November 1st, dedicated to honoring the saints of the Church.
St. Casimir, St. Elizabeth, St. Barnabas.
For this annual event, the kids walk in the shoes of a saint, creating costumes and doing research that all leads to this one day where they get to perform for their fellow schoolmates, family, and friends.
My saint name is St. Anthony. He was the one to hold baby Jesus. He was the doctor of the church. St. Catherine.
And what did you learn about St. Catherine?
I learned that she wanted a room to pray to God.
Saints that come alive. Religious leaders in the school say it's a unique way to impart the saints important lessons.
Learning how to be good and kind to people and how to be a peaceful person, I think that the saints have a lot to teach us.
The saints guide us still, and that there are many people, even around them today, the people in church who go to daily Mass, the people on Sunday Mass, their teachers, the people around them who sacrifice for them. The kids know about the sacrifice and love. We just want to make that connection to church.
Principal Thomas Piro says it's also an interactive way of connecting the students with their faith, a pillar of any Catholic school.
It helps that see how active the faith can be, and that it is not only something that they should believe in, but also to bring that to the next level and to be able to practice that and share that with others.
A way of teaching that seems to be working. Jaden took part in the performance 3 years ago, but she still remembers everything she learned about her saint.
St. Gabriel the Archangel is the messenger of God.
The school has been celebrating All Saints Day this way for about 10 years, a tradition that will continue on. In Woodhaven, Emily Drewby, Currents News.
On this holy day, Pope Francis is promoting the saints as people who've experienced the same successes and failures as the rest of us. Speaking to thousands of pilgrims in St. Peter's Square, the Holy Father said holiness cannot be achieved through our own strengths. Instead, it is the fruit of God's grace and our free response to it. That makes it both a gift and a call. He also pointed out that the saints are not some distant, unreachable human beings, but rather they walk the same difficult path of life we travel, with all of its successes and failures. Francis said remembering the saints helps everyone to face the realities on earth with more courage and hope. Tomorrow, the Universal Church remembers all of our loved ones who passed away and returned to the Lord. That's All Souls Day. The Pope will celebrate Mass in a Roman catacomb where large numbers of early Christian martyrs are buried. He's also inviting Catholics to visit cemeteries and offer their own prayers as an act of faith. Melissa Butts has the story of a special All Souls Day tradition.
Just like every year, Pope Francis is making a special trip to a cemetery on November 2nd to pray for the dead on the Feast of All Souls. He will go to the catacombs of Priscilla in Rome, one of the oldest Paleo-Christian cemeteries in the city. He'll celebrate a Mass at 4 p.m. in commemoration of all those who have died. These catacombs contain frescoes of great importance, which give testimony to the first Christians. It holds the oldest representation of the Virgin Mary, a fresco from the 3rd century.
Torniamo a casa oggi con questa doppia memoria. La memoria del passato, dei nostri che si sono andati, e la memoria del futuro, il cammino che noi andremo.
In previous years, Pope Francis visited a cemetery for the unborn, the American cemetery of Nettuno, dedicated to soldiers and nurses who died in World War II, as well as other cemeteries in Rome, Verano, and Prima Porta. During the day, the Pope will visit the tombs of past popes. On November 4th, he will hold a Mass in St. Peter's Basilica for all the bishops and cardinals who died throughout the year. In Rome, Melissa Butts, Currents News.
The Diocese of Brooklyn will be celebrating All Souls Day with field masses tomorrow at Catholic cemeteries in Brooklyn and Queens and on Long Island. If you want to attend the masses, they begin at 10:30 in the morning at St. John's Cemetery in Middle Village, Queens, Mount St. Mary Cemetery in Flushing, Queens, Holy Cross Cemetery in East Flatbush, Brooklyn, and in Farmingdale, Long Island at St. Charles and Resurrection Cemeteries. Turning to the wildfires that are consuming California. Weather conditions up and down the state today are slightly more favorable to fighting the blazes, but there's another hazard plaguing residents. Thieves pretending to be firefighters are looting evacuated homes and businesses. In Sonoma County, about 300 cops are being deployed to prevent the crimes. Some crooks are also posing as security guards to gain access to evacuated areas. In Simi Valley, hundreds of residents are getting the all clear to go back home. They're facing a big cleanup project. Still, as Amy Johnson reports, it could have been a lot worse.
It was really scary to see it close because from the cameras you could see the flame coming over the mountainside.
14-year-old Maddie Tran had a front row seat to the easy fire thanks to her doorbell camera.
I saw the fire come over and I saw a lot of firemen and police cars.
Crews were able to save the homes on the street, stopping the fire just feet away.
I'm just happy to be here, to see my house is here.
Evacuees like Lorelei Allenbaugh were able to return to their homes this morning. She wasn't sure she'd have a house to come home to.
It was pretty scary yesterday when everything was just kind of blowing up the hill. The unknown was probably the worst part of it, not knowing what was going on with our house.
About 700 firefighters are still in the area taking care of hot spots.
So we still have a lot of mopping, we call it mopping up to do, which means we go around and extinguish all these hot spots. The hot spots that we're seeing right now, they're well within the burned area of the fire. So it's looking pretty good.
A different kind of mopping up or cleaning up in nearby Moore Park, where Phos-Chek was dropped to save homes after the fire jumped Highway 23. Now they're cleaning up the red retardant. Some did it on their own. Others got help from Gladright.
I grabbed my guy out here and I said, hey, let's do some community service today.
They cleaned driveways for free and gave discounts on houses.
You definitely need a little bit of power and we have a little bit of heat so that we're able to take the Phos-Chek up very quickly and we're saving the homeowners hours of time today.
That report filed by Amy Johnson. There are still more than a dozen active wildfires burning in California. Officials are hoping a reduction in winds this weekend will help in the fight against the flames. President Trump is leaving New York City and headed south to Florida. He's changed his primary residence from Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue to Mar-a-Lago Resort in Palm Beach, Florida. Trump said that he cherishes New York and the people, but not the public officials, tweeting, "Despite the fact that I pay millions of dollars in city and state and local taxes each year, I have been treated very badly by political leaders of both the city and state. Few have been treated worse." In response, Governor Andrew Cuomo tweeted, "Good riddance. It's not like Donald Trump paid taxes here anyway. He's all yours, Florida." Trump, a Queens native, added that New York will always have a special place in his heart. There's another big issue facing President Trump tonight. What's next in the impeachment investigation of him? A sharply divided House of Representatives is signaling that a new public phase is about to begin on Capitol Hill. But the timeline is still unknown. Karen Kafer reports from Washington with a look at what's ahead.
A key House vote opens a new phase in the impeachment inquiry and sets the stage for a more public phase. This vote was not about whether President Trump should or should not be impeached, rather how House Democrats plan to proceed.
The House takes the next step forward as we establish the procedures for open hearings.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi presided over the first House floor vote related to the impeachment inquiry, which split largely along party lines. 2 Democrats voted against it, both from moderate districts eyed by the GOP next November. No Republicans voted in favor.
And there's a long list of things the American people deserve to have done that simply are not being addressed because of the Democrats' obsession with impeachment.
Democrats hope the vote pivots talk away from the probe's legitimacy, a target of Republicans over the last few weeks and a point the White House seized upon, and toward the substance of what witnesses bring to Congress, testimony the American public will now be able to hear firsthand. The House Intelligence Committee will conduct those public hearings, and the Judiciary Committee draft any articles of impeachment. The resolution says minority Republicans may request witnesses and issue subpoenas with Democratic approval. Timing of all of this still remains fluid. If the House concludes their business and votes to impeach, a Senate trial could stretch into 2020, close to Democratic presidential primary voting. Partisan politics aside, Thursday's vote has significance. Congress has only gone down this road 3 times prior. Richard Nixon resigned amid an impeachment inquiry in 1974. Andrew Johnson was impeached by the House in 1868, and Bill Clinton in 1998. Both were acquitted by the Senate. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
President Trump is looking at a new tool to counter the impeachment investigation, a fireside chat. He wants to read the Ukraine call transcript to the American people. That conversation with Ukraine's president is at the center of the Democrats' inquiry. They accuse him of withholding military aid until there was an investigation of Joe Biden and his son Hunter, who worked in Ukraine. Trump insists it was a good call, adding that he might have a fireside chat on live television and read the transcript of the call. President Franklin Roosevelt first started fireside chats on radio to reassure the American people during the Great Depression. The U.S. bishops are telling Congress that more must be done to protect children who have been aborted. They're sending letters to every lawmaker on Capitol Hill urging them to pass the Dignity for Aborted Children Act. The head of the pro-life activities for the bishops' conference, Archbishop Joseph Naumann, cited the gruesome discovery in Illinois of the remains of thousands of children who had been aborted. He writes, "I believe we as a nation can and should ensure respectful treatment of fetal remains after an abortion. Whether you support or oppose legalized abortion, I hope you will agree that these bodies should not be wantonly discarded as medical waste or preserved at the whim of the abortion doctor. As a nation, we can at least come together to ensure all human remains are treated with basic human dignity." The Dignity Act is awaiting votes in both the House and the Senate. There are a lot more stories headed your way that are only available on Currents News. Cardinal Dolan and what he would have done if Joe Biden presented himself for Holy Communion at St. Patrick's. After all that Mother Cabrini criticism over honoring the saint, there's a shakeup at City Hall. A memorable courtroom hug is an example that Bishop DiMarzio points to, showing the power of forgiveness. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. New York's Cardinal Timothy Dolan is tackling the question of Holy Communion for politicians who support abortion. He told Fox News that he would have handled the Joe Biden controversy differently. A South Carolina priest refused the Eucharist to the former vice president. Cardinal Dolan was asked if the priest was correct.
I think what he said was very to the point. I thought that was a good teaching
He has his
moment.
convictions. He wants to follow church teaching.
But whether that prudential judgment was wise, I don't want to judge him either.
Right.
I wouldn't do it.
The priest, Father Robert Morey, was acting under Diocese of Charleston policy that prohibits communion for politicians who back abortion. Biden has said he won't comment because it involves his personal life. There's a shakeup tonight at City Hall after Mayor Bill de Blasio faced criticism over Mother Cabrini. Tom Finkelpearl is out as the Cultural Affairs Commissioner. No one is saying why he's leaving, but his departure comes after an uproar over the decision not to build a statue of the saint. Mother Cabrini won a citywide poll asking which women should be honored for helping to build the Big Apple. Since the snub, Bishop DiMarzio has been at the forefront of a large campaign to erect a monument for her. Responding to the Catholic outcry, Governor Andrew Cuomo announced on Columbus Day the state would pay for a new Cabrini memorial. She was responsible for many programs to help poor Italian immigrants in the city. Bishop DiMarzio is also here tonight with Ed Wilkinson. They're going to talk about the power of forgiveness as a world-changing gift. The bishop's already devoted his column in the Tablet to one especially memorable moment. He's going to talk about that and more on this week's edition of Into the Deep. Ed?
Thank you. Bishop DiMarzio is with us today. We're going to talk about a recent column that he had in the Tablet about the power of forgiveness. And Bishop, this goes back to a situation down in Texas where a police officer, she was a woman, she was actually convicted of killing somebody.
Manslaughter.
Yeah, manslaughter, I think it was. It wasn't murder, it was manslaughter. She walked in an apartment that she thought it was hers. And but at the trial, there was really a fine symbol of forgiveness there, where a family member asked, could I hug her and forgive her? What did you think of that? What does that say to you?
Well, it's certainly a sign of Christian. It was Christian forgiveness. I mean, it was motivated by that belief in the scriptures that we need to forgive. It's an extraordinary moment for somebody to do that, especially after the person is just convicted. And then what got more complicated is the judge also wanted to come down after she had sentenced the woman to 10 years. She came down and gave her an embrace. So yeah, it was, and the judge also gave her a Bible. Man, the poor judge was criticized for mixing religion and justice, and I don't know. But I mean, it was two separate things. The trial was ended. So it's very difficult to separate today, and that's one of our problems. The people, some people are trying to separate religion from society. We're part of society. We're a pillar of society. You can't separate it. It'll collapse. It is one of the pillars we're built on.
Yeah. Didn't it remind you a bit, though, of when John Paul II went and visited the attempted assassination, the assassin in jail? Do you remember that incident?
I put it in the article. I thought that was amazing. That picture itself is, it was like he was hearing his confession, except that, as I put in the article, what the discussion was, Ali Akka was his name, I think. He said, "Why didn't you die? I shot you." And that Cardinal Dziwisz, when he wrote his book about living with John Paul for all those years, he put that in. He was kind of shocked at that too.
Yeah. What does it say to us? How do we apply that example to our daily lives? Because there are many times we hold grudges and we need to forgive. Yeah. What does it do if we don't forgive?
Well, when we don't forgive, it eats away at us usually. It's non-forgiveness is usually turned back on the person who doesn't forgive. It is one of the most difficult things we have to do. It's one of the petitions of the Our Father. It's the most difficult one, I believe, that when we say it. So we want to be forgiven as much as we want God to forgive us. So that puts a big burden on us because we want to be forgiven and we have to learn to forgive others. There's no perfect life that no one ever doesn't need forgiveness. So that's all part of the life we have to live, a life where we recognize our mistakes or other people's mistakes against us, and forgiveness is the only thing that's going to set things right.
Well, what does this say about forgiveness and justice? I mean, how do we justify that? You can forgive somebody, but this police officer is still going to have to serve this term of 10 years.
Well, it didn't nullify justice, but it showed the human aspect of forgiveness. That it doesn't mean that there's no retribution for when we do something wrong, but the hurt that was felt by those other people was mollified by saying, I do forgive you for what you did. Maybe, was it a mistake? Was it carelessness? I don't know. I didn't follow the proceedings that closely. It's kind of a bizarre thing. I mean, they lived one floor above, so she went up to the wrong floor and didn't recognize it wasn't her apartment. The door was open. A series of incidents that very difficult to understand. There's just, all kinds of things that led to this. So why she was convicted, I'm not sure, but there must have been something there that they felt there was a need for a conviction.
Yeah, certainly there was some. She was a sympathetic character in this whole case.
Yeah, that could have been, yeah.
Okay. Bishop, thanks so much for your insights on that. And
okay.
now we're going to throw it back to you at the news desk.
Thank you, Ed and Bishop DiMarzio. As Pope Francis once said, forgiveness is a grace we must ask of the Lord. Still to come on Currents News. Teens and their screen addictions are leading to troubling new findings by researchers. Could someone you know be at risk? And a Franciscan who's devoted his life to teaching kids is getting a worldwide honor. And please check out one of our latest features in the tablet, the Our Diocesan Family page. That's where you can send in photos of your family receiving certain sacraments, such as baptism, first communion, confirmation, and marriage. For more information and to submit your pictures, go to thetablet.org/ourdiocesanfamily. We'll be right back. Teens are staring at their screens for longer than ever before. That's according to new research that says the amount of time young people spend online is growing, and it isn't always for schoolwork. Mandy Gaither has more.
More than 7 hours a day. That, on average, is how much time a U.S. teen spends watching a screen for entertainment, according to a new study by the nonprofit organization Common Sense Media. Researchers say screen time has inched up by 42 minutes a day since 2015. Data from a nationwide survey of more than 1,600 youth between the ages of 8 to 18 was analyzed. The study says tweens spend nearly 5 hours looking at screens. Most of the time in both age groups is spent looking at TV or videos. The research shows for tweens, YouTube dominates the online video space. Youth also spend a majority of time using devices to play games. Risks include the potential for youth to be exposed to harmful messages online and for them to become socially isolated, spending time on devices instead of with peers. I'm Mandy Gaither.
Finally tonight, a Franciscan brother has received a high honor by the United Nations. Brother Peter Tabici has been named the UN's Person of the Year for his work promoting education for all young people in Africa. Brother Tabici is a teacher of math and physics at a secondary school in Kenya. This is the second award the religious has earned. Earlier this year, he became the first African to win the Global Teacher of the Year award. The prize money from that achievement he planned to use to boost technology at his school and support the local community. That is Currents News. I'm Tamara Lane. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.